Hello and welcome to our SATSA webinar. We're going to be talking all things adventure tourism today. We're going to be talking predominantly about how to put South Africa on the global adventure destination map. So by the end of the session, what we hope to leave you with is a perspective on the value proposition of South Africa as an adventure tourism destination, what other destinations have done well to position their destination as a leading adventure tourism destination. We're going to go over to Jules, who's going to tell us a little bit about how the Western Cape is putting a spotlight on adventure tourism. And we're going to ask Hanli to give us a little bit of a perspective on the adventure tourism work that's being done by the chapter that's tasked with driving that segment within the SATSA fold. Talking about a self-regulatory framework, which I always think doesn't sound very sexy, but it's very, very necessary. And I'm sure that Hanli is going to make it sound super sexy. So joining me to do that today, I've got Gergana Nikolova, who's the Regional Director for the Adventure Travel Trade Association. I've got Julia Lowe, who's the Head of Leisure Tourism at Westgrow, Hanli, COO of SATSA, and Di Jacobs, Team Manager of Business Development and Contracting at Sense of Africa. Di, thank you so much for joining us. This is your first webinar with us. So we hope it is the first of many. So before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping for everyone on the call. It's being recorded, so you can watch it back, send it to your friends. And we are also going to send the recording to SATSA members after the event. And of course, if you've got any questions, Q&A folder at the bottom of your screen, or you feel free to throw it into the chat as well. Happy to take questions there. So I think what I'm going to do is just start with you, Han, to talk about the adventure chapter and some of the activities that are happening, because it is because of that chapter that we're sitting in this room today. So give us a little bit of an overview of what you guys have been up to.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to do it through Death by PowerPoint, and the only way I can make this sexy is I was going to offer to take my clothes off, but that's definitely not sexy. So I'm going to have to get a volunteer somewhere in the crowd. But it is actually sexy. And man, we are so excited about the things that we're doing. So I'm going to put on the screen quickly. This is just a visual of the work that we're doing at the moment. So as most of you guys would know, we started doing adventure tourism research in 2014. We did a partnership with Department of Tourism at that stage, went around the country, spoke to adventure operators, spoke about the different ways of regulating, and the feeling very much it came out of that, and it was published in the report by the Department of Tourism, is that it should be a self-regulation process instead of a government regulation process. Often self-regulation actually sets the bar a little bit higher, and it offers recourse for the visitors as well. So lots of lobbying to try and find funding to do this, and eventually we just said, oh, great, let's go. We are having wonderful conversations with Westgrow and hopefully all of the other tourism provincial authorities to see how we as sort of public sector and private sector can work together, specifically when it comes to the marketing of South Africa as a tourism destination. I was very lucky to be able to go to New Zealand to see what they do, and my goodness, I mean, they really, at this stage, I have to admit, they are the world capital for adventure tourism. But from the top government all the way down to the people on the ground, they all participate in building the strategy. They all participated in building standards. So they first had a self-regulation model, and then that went over into a government regulated one. But they have this amazing, it's a little bit like our third-party road accident fund, but working quite well in adventure. So if there's an accident in adventure anywhere in New Zealand, they don't claim from the operator, they claim from this fund. But in order to have this fund, there's a whole bunch of verification processes and verifiers of the verification, etc. So anyways, we're going to start very simple. In 2020, we launched our SATSA Adventure Tourism Roadmap. Now, Uncle Bill Harrop, hope he's doing well. I'm sure he's smiling down because this was one of his legacy projects, and Johan Radcliffe from Dirty Boots really sort of got the adventure chapter off the ground, and now we have a fantastic leader in Andre de Toy, no relation to me. He kicks butt, he really does. So we started our adventure chapter. We have got a steering committee, and I'm just going to sort of run from the left-hand side through. So we've developed what we want as an adventure tourism roadmap, and ultimately, just to explain to you guys why we're doing this, in order to market South Africa as a top tourism destination, you need safe, fun, credible products. In order to do that, we need to develop the standards that people can adhere to, and that's literally the process. Once ultimately, the goal is to grow the adventure chapter. I think Natalia would be able to give you some figures on, it is the fastest growing subsector, and Ghana as well. I mean, it's phenomenal, the research that they've done. And it's such an amazing opportunity for South Africa. We have a plethora of activities. We have the right climate. You can be free in South Africa. So anyways, we're going to start off with an adventure activities code of good practice. So that will be the umbrella one that's relevant to all operators that's coming into the process. Part of that will be training, tools, templates, incident management, which I think is very important. It's critical for us to build up a case study of what kind of incidents are happening and how severe they are, so that we can also start lobbying for better insurance for the adventure industry, because I know that that's something that people really battle with at the moment. So there'll be an entire, so members of SATSA, or those who subscribe then to the standards, would sign the code of good practice, etc. But out of that, we've selected our first, before I say that, sorry, I'm interrupting myself. I'm really bad with that. When we did our research, we found 101 different adventure activities in South Africa, and I love it. So very much our marketing campaign is going to be focused on 101 Adventures South Africa. We've sort of grouped them together in different, boat-based activities, paddling, rafting, mountaineering, and these are the first 5 that we have selected to work on. So in wheels base, we'll have bicycles, motor cars, motorcycles, etc. So each of these groups, we have got a technical working group that has been established. Anybody that still wants to volunteer for any of the working groups or task teams, I'll come to them just now, are absolutely welcome to do so. So very important, we are working with the entire industry. This is not a SATSA project. It's not, people that serves on the committees or whatever come from the entire spectrum of the industry. We're working closely with SAIA, which is the South African Adventure Activity Industry Association, SAIA, Adventure Activity Industry Association. And they do a lot of outdoor activities, education-based outdoor activities, which doesn't necessarily fall for us under tourism, but all of the elements that we are working with here actually sits in there as well. So the community, the tourism industry, will be the ones that develop the standards. We've already looked at the existing SAMSA, civil aviation, etc. regulations, and bringing those into it. And these standards would then be something that a member sign on and adhere to. And then we will have a unique identification from a credibility point of view, an icon that they will be able to place to say they are a wheels-based accredited SATSA member. Following from that, so we develop all these standards, and obviously as time goes on, we hope to get the 101 done individually eventually. Reporting and surveys, like as I said, incidents, incredibly important for us to develop data around the tourism industry. The only data that we really have at the moment, apart from the wonderful work that Wesco has done on the trends, etc., is done in 2014 by Dirty Boots, Johan. So number of visitors, their demographics, employment, etc. All of this helping us to develop, to be able to lobby better and to understand tourism industry better. Complaints management, it will be part of the code of good practice and the SATSA code of conduct. So currently what we do when we get a complaint is there's an investigation, we have a disciplinary committee, and we normally try to sort things out way before it gets to any legal point. So we are the first stop, and then, we carry on with that. But data collection, I think, is incredibly important. And then the exciting side, is the marketing. So this is where we will lean very heavily on the provincial authorities, SA Tourism, etc., even marketing adventure activities into our SATSA base of tour operators. So exhibitions, there is, for instance, in July next year, there will be an exhibition called Adventure X, with Getaway and all of those being stopped at the moment. There really is a gap in the market, even with them, for a very dedicated adventure-specific domestic tourism show. So we're very excited about that one. And then your normal World Travel Market and in Davos, etc. We have events which we are calling adventure exchanges. The first one is happening on the 11th of November in Cape Town. We're hoping to take that all around the country. We're also going to have adventure days because I think it's very critical. Dan will say, for the consultants to actually experience that. So we will have one in Cape Town, and today we're all going to go skydiving or, falling off mountains or exciting things. Falling off mountains with a rope so that there's no injuries. Social media campaign, as I said, the 101 Adventures essay. Fam trips. We're hoping to do our first one with Westgrow in the Western Cape and Overberg region in March next year. That's a dedicated adventure tourism fam. And we will also have a website. Now, this is for me, from a marketing point of view, going to be a very important one. A map of South Africa where you can zone in on a region, you can read up about the region, and you can have the profiles of all of the adventure activities that's available in that region. So to really make it easy for B2C and B2B people to join. So very shortly, that's our strategy, Natalia.
Cool, thank you so much for that. Nothing says fun, safe and credible like falling off a mountain. Really, really looking forward to that in one of our adventure exchanges. I'm going to go over to Gergana, if I may, because you mentioned, Hanli, that you'd had the opportunity to go to New Zealand and seen from a best practice perspective what adventure tourism destinations should be doing. So Gergana, from your perspective, I'm gathering that the self-regulation, like Hanli's just explained, is one step in that long journey. Tell us a little bit about the destinations that you hold as a hallmark of adventure tourism and what they're doing right, which we could potentially learn from.
Thank you very much. Yes, other examples are coming from destinations like Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, Iceland, Greenland. Each of them have, and I am working closely with them, leading activities in Europe and Central Asia. It is interesting that it's important that collaboration between the public and the private sector. This is where really when the success really takes place. And it is important that it is both bottom up and also from the bottom up and also from the top down approach. And something that very often we support destinations with is that community builders. So very often there's lack of trust in the public sector, but without the public sector, actually the industry is not able to get to those international trade shows so that they can wave the flag of their potential, of the assets that they have in the destination, and that the local industry has been working on the product. So that is why this is very important to build that trust, and oftentimes ADTA comes to help build that bridge between the two. We have a great example from specifically from Norway, where after years of obviously very well known adventure product, safety was a big concern, and a lot of travelers have been going without being prepared. So the industry was the one, actually the public sector was the one that reached out to the government and worked together on building these safety measurements that need to be communicated globally before the traveler comes. And they're still on that journey. They are advancing, but it is still a journey. Obviously, COVID also has impacted greatly that process. And from another aspect, it has helped confirm what is the type of traveler that they are after, and meanwhile to work on that communication campaign. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Perfect. So you were talking about building a bridge, and we in the Western Cape, thankfully, have a bridge, Jules. Hanli's clapping. So we work very closely as a private public sector, particularly in the Western Cape province. So I'm going to go over to you, Jules, pick on you. So you guys have set your sights on adventure tourism in the province. tell us a little bit about what you're doing, perhaps how you're working with SATSA and the private sector, and how we can plug in a little bit more than we possibly already are.
Super, thanks, Nats. Yeah, from a Westgrow perspective, obviously, our bigger plan is Tourism Blueprint 2030. So we're funded by DDAT, and because we're funded by DDAT, we sit under that big umbrella of the DDAT's plan from a marketing perspective. So within what we call visitor experience, that's where sits active and outdoor adventure. So through my joy and love for Haneli, and through our love for this incredible industry that is the tourism industry, we as Westgrow want to ensure that we work together with our stakeholders. And for us, our stakeholders are the regional tourism officers, and then obviously that filters down into the LTOs and the LTAs. And what we do, we don't focus on the actual product readiness. We focus on, once the product is ready, getting it into market. So we focus with the RTOs, with the LTOs and the LTAs, that they know what they're doing, they know what they're marketing, they understand their product. I mean, I think Nats or Han, you alluded to data research. We know that data is how we're all making our decisions nowadays. 64% of the people that traveled or did outdoor adventure were based within the Western Cape and were domestic travelers. We're so quick to be looking to our international market to feed our funnel, but actually our funnel is sitting right here within our own domestic markets. So that's very key for us as Westgrow. And then from a marketing perspective, what's key for us is we have, we're so lucky with the product offering that we have within the Western Cape. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Outdoor spaces, our marketing campaign, get in a good space, far away feeling. Active adventure just falls right into that. So if we can be as good as New Zealand, and if we can be, our CEO always says we want to be a world-class tourism destination. And if we're going to be world-class, we have to have a world-class active adventure offering, to the tourists that come to the Western Cape. So as Westgrow, that's what we're working together with SATSA and together with our stakeholders, which are the municipalities, the districts, and the tourism officers. So kind of a really big pie that we're piecing together as Westgrow.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned world class, so Di, I'm going to bring you in here. We often hold New Zealand up as the kind of pinnacle of adventure tourism, but working with the product that you are currently working with in South Africa, how far would you say we are in terms of our product being, or our adventure tourism value proposition being, world class? Do we have the base, is what I'm asking.
Hello, ladies on the panel and everyone joining us today from all over. It's good to be here. Yes, I think from our perspective, just from a DMC perspective, we've noticed a huge increase in the requests for adventure tourism, and not just adventure tourism, sort of more experiential experiences that the clients can book with us. And I think having seen what SATS has been doing as well as Westgrow, I think that by having promoted a lot of product already and all the campaigns that you've all been running, I think it's definitely helped to bring up the level of bookings that we've started seeing. So I think if you look at the overall picture of what product we have to offer in the various areas, just a simple bungee jump and, the sort of horse riding or kayaking in the beautiful ocean, I think, yes, we've definitely getting up there. We might not be on the same level as New Zealand yet, but also we have to consider that COVID came in between. But if I look at sort of a loading perspective over the last few months, we've loaded a lot more activities in the last few months than we've ever done before, which tells me that, yes, we are definitely on the up. And I think that we can maybe talk a little bit later about what we actually need from those service providers, because it's great to market it and put it out there, but we've got to make sure that us as DMCs have got the right information, the duration of the tours, the what it involves and so on, for planning properly, to put it all into itineraries so that we can offer it properly to our clients. So yes, Natalie, I think definitely we are on the up with adventure activities, and South Africa's definitely got a lot of different activities to offer, I think, than other countries. So
That's so the point that you just made around, what we can do as industry to make it easy for you to sell adventure tourism. To what extent is that kind of self-regulation important, Di? I mean, to what extent are your customers, your business customers saying, we want to know how you are planning to keep our travelers safe? Is that something that comes up in discussions at all?
All the time. And in fact, we have we've implemented a service level agreement that we put out. And this, we find it really helps the suppliers to see what clients are looking for, because obviously you can sell a kayak visit, but you need to know what the implications are if anything goes wrong. But you don't want to promote the negative side of it. You just want to give the clients the reassurance that the people you're working with are accredited, and that they have these sort of terms in place, and that they can then travel safely. And then I think also the validity of rates going forward, we need to have a good year's validity of rates. And then also what exactly is involved in the activity, which actually helps us then to put it into our packages and know that we're genuinely offering the right thing, and a good description. If you're going on a bike ride, how long is it taking? What do clients need to bring with them? It goes down to those little details that we need. But I think in terms of self-regulation, I do think that it will help most suppliers out there who are, especially those that are coming into the business, to take that step in the right direction.
And I'm going to bring you in here because I know as part of this adventure tourism drive that SATS is going on, what we're trying to do is to get emerging businesses and actually non-SATS members to participate. Do you have a particular view that links up with what Di is saying in terms of what she needs as a DMC to promote the destination as an adventure tourism destination?
Yeah, 2 points there. Sorry about that. The first point is, SATSA for half a decade has been doing due diligence and credibility. That's what we stand for. We are now going into the marketing area a little bit, but we're well versed on how to set up the checks and the tick boxes. The adventure tourism industry, the self-regulation project, a lot of that will be around training. So going out there and educating all of the suppliers on what exactly the standards are. I mean, firstly, we're going to be working with them. So we're hoping to bring in as many as we can. And again, I'm going to put the call out. Any of you on the webinar today, we definitely have space in our task teams, because that will cover risk and legalities, guide certification, which is such a big problem in South Africa, the monitoring and statistics, and then we also have the working group. So again, the call goes out. But the point that I want to bring in, and I mean, this is such a hairy thing, but when we start talking about safety, obviously we had the incident, very tragic incident last week, and it starts making us really focus on, and it's something that we focus on all along, but it just brings it to the fore so much, is how are the communities around tourism attractions benefiting from that attraction. Now, I had a wonderful conversation with Linda Grimbreek from Kruger-Lohfeldt Business Chamber and Tourism this morning, and I don't want to steal her thunder. This is her idea, but she is needing some funding, so I'm going to zip it in here. But she's been doing a lot of work in the villages. Specifically now, yesterday she had a very successful meeting with the chief at the Numbi Gate village. And obviously the communities are supportive. They understand the income of tourism. Unfortunately, there are elements that are, abusing the system. But she's trying to get them to develop, each village to develop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different kinds of activities. And mostly those are adventure activities. As a matter of fact, ATTA classifies even cultural visits to villages as an adventure activity. We in South Africa take a little bit of a harder thing on, hard adventure, extreme adventure. But in these villages, like just the things that they've come up with already, for instance, horse riding, donkey cart rides, sewing, learning to dance, getting a group of women together, and you as the tourist actually come and sit 2 hours, just 2 hours. You come and you sit and you do something, because we understand tourists are not going to want to stay over to in the village. They're on the way to the park. But it's this wonderful story about how you know, since the dawn of the new South Africa and all of the work that has been done, these people are being pulled into the value chain. So it is something interesting, I think, for visitors to see. It's not a set up cultural village kind of thing. It's a real experience, and you do it on your way to the airport or on your way out. 2 hours, that gets included in the activities. That means that every person in South Africa can actually contribute to ensuring that there's less protest, better, you know, treatment for our tourists, etc. And like I said, these are mostly adventure activities. So the work is huge, but it has to get done.
I'm just thrilled that sewing could be classed as adventure tourism, because I've been saying this forever. Good. Give us examples of countries that are doing this community-based tourism / adventure tourism. I mean, there must be some prime examples we could steal like an artist from.
Absolutely. And yes, that's what I wanted to mention, just to make a step back. And actually the definition that the ATKA community ATKA members are using to define adventure travel is the combination of being physically active, spending time in nature, and having a cultural immersion. In the heart is the experience. This experience can be transformational, it could be a challenge, it could be wellness, and so on. And 90% of what the members offer is the soft adventure. I can tell you that now, even in Switzerland, on the day of adventure, the first day of the Adventure Travel World Summit, actually what I did was I did some biking, and after that stand-up paddling. After 1 hour of stand-up paddling, we actually went to a small island where a local chef prepared incredible meal, collecting different fruits and mushrooms from the nearby surroundings, the mountains and so on. And it was just an exceptional experience, speaking about, I didn't know what you will have today, and that is why I couldn't put it in advance in the menu, because I wasn't sure what I will be able to find the past 2 days. So, and after that, we continued with more stand-up paddling and so on. So this is kind of an adventure which everyone in our experience really liked. And it also brings to what Han mentioned about the local communities. And we had that interaction with the locals. He's a local chef, very high quality chef, and he brings us to what is unique for them. And to ensure, especially nowadays, after over-tourism chaos before COVID, we now have learned that it is very important to take the local communities into consideration, both for the locals and also the traveler better satisfaction.
Yeah, that's how we travel now. Han, you had a point?
Yes, I think it's incredibly important because, you know, I think often people battle with the village tourism, township tourism, cultural tourism, and it's seen as zoo rides and poverty porn, and that's it that has to change. So being able to go into, I mean, for me, to just listening to what Gergana says now, how amazing is that? And that's exactly what we would be able to offer here in South Africa. And I think that's the point that Linda is making very clearly, that this is an experience and it is an immersion into a culture. It's not driving around looking at how they live, shame, they're so poor. And she tells them, this is not crying, this is laughing. When the tourists come, you know, this is what we're going to do. So I really enjoy that. And I really think that makes a lot of sense. Cultural immersion. Thanks.
Jules, are you getting culturally immersed?
Not necessarily culturally immersed, but it's also how we're trying to change our storytelling here, because, you know, you travel to many of these international shows nowadays, and that's sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. We need to remember that we come from Africa, and sustainability for us is job creation, ultimately. So we're trying to get that messaging out there that it doesn't matter about your carbon footprint or necessarily, you know, the meeting the chief or whatever, but if you come and you interact in a tourism product, and if you have a tourism offering, you are ultimately going to be sustaining a tourism job, which is very different to the kind of sustainability to community marketing narrative that our international counterparts are using. As Africa, our sustainability is jobs. So I think that's really important for us to also go out there. I mean, I think our new minister, she calls it jobs for growth or whatever. I don't know. I'm not trying to sound any kind of political nonsense now, but it really is so important, because if you do not have a tourist, you do not have a job. And if you do not have a job, then there isn't a community. So that golden thread is really, really important.
Yeah, such an amazing point. Gergana?
I cannot agree more. And something else to mention is very often I get into these conversations about flight shame, and actually I personally, even in my last talks, I'm putting flight shame into flight fame, because namely, without flying, many of these Western travelers are not able to come to Africa, other remote areas. And something, again, a good example coming from Norway is the value calculator that they are actually incorporating in their 2030 strategy, not taking just the emissions from a traveler, but actually adding different components of the travel, and based on this, they're actually adding the real value of the traveler, how long they're staying, and so on. So this is very important, and we see airlines are really making an effort to cut their negative impact, and without them we're not able to get to these destinations. And I wanted also, yes, to highlight on sustainability that it's so many components. Totally appreciate your comment about the job creation. And something else for ATTA that is important is women leadership, as again, as part of this of the sustainability. And it's really an honor to see all of us to get together on this call and highlighting the importance of women in travel.
I'm going to go to Hun, and then I'd like to loop Diane and Hun.
Okay, just interesting thing. I attended the online symposium of human rights and climate change, the benefit of linking those agendas in tourism last week. And it was phenomenal. And it was quite an eye-opener, because things like carbon offsetting are now starting to be frowned upon. And, you know, we go through these fads, and we go through these like words that we all want to agree on. I'm hoping that I would be able to get the recording of the whole thing, because I think it would be fascinating, especially for our responsible environmental tourism and the access, inclusivity and diversity, the people side. But yeah, that's the whole thing about flight shaming and carbon offsetting seems to be on the way out.
Di.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and I know we've also experienced a lot of that. But what I wanted to bring back in is when Haneli mentioned earlier about launching all of this, is the training and making the awareness. So I think what happens a lot of times when we get requests from international markets for a tour around South Africa, we kind of think of accommodation, transport, and maybe one or two site attractions. But I think in terms of consultants and people that sell tours, we can do so much more to learn more about what's out there, and then also to give continuity. So if you're doing a paddling experience in Cape Town and you know that guests, they've requested that, you're going to offer them that along the garden route as well. So you need to know how to connect those dots together to give your guests what they're looking for. And I think, again, it's a big thing about knowledge. We just started something in our office here where we've gotten the 3 good publications, so Getaway and Platteland, and I can't remember the other one. But we've started circulating those around the consultants and saying, just read up about all those different places you can visit and get some knowledge on that. And I think that all ties back into sort of connecting with all the suppliers that are doing all these amazing things, and put that into your packages wherever possible. And that's how we can also promote this more and get us up to sort of meet the level of New Zealand then.
Yeah, it's actually so interesting that you say that, Di, because you're 100% right. When we're looking at travel, we're looking at destination, we're looking at the product that you have to consume, like the flight, like the accommodation, but you actually don't see it through the lens of the experience. As much as we talk constantly about how experiential travel is what our guests are wanting from us, so just actually flipping that mindset would be a really interesting interesting thing to do.
Just putting a bit more than you would normally put in, and you know, you do have your traditional sites, but there's more to that, and you can create so much more adventure in that program. It can be a soft adventure, like we mentioned. It can be that beautiful sewing. It's all the experience.
No, not the sewing.
People have. We're going to send you on that one.
Not the sewing. Jules, get in a good space. Congrats on the lorry. Amazing. Love get in a good space, because if that doesn't scream adventure tourism, then I don't know what does, essentially. How are you bringing in that kind of adventure tourism angle into the get in a good space? I mean, is that a kind of core pillar of the campaign? Are you doing anything specific around adventure tourism within that?
Yeah, thanks, Nats. The team was very excited about the recent accolades. So besides Get in a Good Space, also remembering it was Roblox, the Table Mountain campaign. So first DMO to design a game, because, you know, data shows us that kids are making the choices as to where people go on holiday nowadays. Who would have ever thought? So anyway, I'm digressing. So from a Get in a Good Space perspective, again, it was all data-led research, and the two things that came up was nature and bucket lists, you know. And again, I see that when I do my travels to the various trade shows, people's spend is higher. They want to experience more things they normally would do. COVID gave them a big kind of shock of, you know, what happens if, you know, this happens to us again. And they really are pushing themselves to do things that they wouldn't normally do. I mean, who would have thought that the Indian market was our biggest skydiving market? I mean, my goodness, you know, just the thought of throwing myself out of an airplane, let alone crocheting, gives me the heebie-jeebies. So for us, obviously, we designed Get in a Good Space. We then designed our trade collateral. It all deep dives even further into the product. But again, it comes down to our RTOs and our regions. If we don't have the buy-in from them, and if we don't have the collaboration with them, then there's no point in us doing these wonderful marketing campaigns if we can't deliver on the ground with the actual product. So that's why it's so important, you know, to have that thread again with SATSA, with the municipalities, with the districts, that we all are talking the same kind of shop. So as Wesgro, yes, we have that wonderful promotional marketing campaign and material out there, but we work very closely with DDAT, with SATSA, and with the municipalities to ensure that the product is delivered on. So I don't know if I've answered your question correctly, but that's kind of where we sit as Wesgro.
Gergana, Jules mentioned the word bucket list. And we've seen that greatest of all trips also thrown around quite a lot. I kind of get the impression, though, that adventure tourism has become so much more mainstream than bucket list or greatest of all trips, but perhaps it's just a story I'm telling myself. I feel like anybody can be an adventure tourist now, especially if they like sewing, which we've just discovered. Yes. Tell me a little bit about that.
Definitely adventure travel is on the rise, and this goes with a great responsibility and also some negative impacts from it. So it really depends on us as the travel professionals to manage this. Something that we see now more and more, and something that we've been discussing a lot also during the summit in Switzerland, is how to actually, both from a destination and business as a tour operator aspect, to plan the trip in the most sustainable manner. So, or since we mentioned sustainability has so many aspects, how to minimize the negative impact of a traveler. Here comes behavioral economics, the knowledge of how people really behave, and applying this in tourism. We have examples from other industries and how this has really helped shift the negative impact. And now we have also experts in the travel industry as well. So this is very important, as we have seen during COVID, a lot of regular or mass travelers going into the mountains or going to remote areas, they're buying a cheap tent and they're just leaving it there because actually this is not their thing. Nordics, the whole Norway, Iceland, Greenland, so on, they have a big challenge with the freedom to roam, with which they're known, which also actually enables travelers who do not have the appropriate behavior to actually roam everywhere. And this leads to certain challenges. So it is, yes, it is growing. People of all abilities are also invited to join adventure experiences with e-biking, for example. People of older age and so on. So we see this, but it is our responsibility as travel professionals to pave the ground so that we minimize the negative impact and definitely increase the positive impact of that growing adventure travel.
Thanks, Mel, for your comment in the chat about your yarn tour clients who drink wine and enjoy pampering. Greatly appreciated. I'm sure it's good fun. We do have a question, and actually it's very timely because I did want to go into what are the stumbling blocks to us paving a way where we actually are contending on a global stage for adventure tourism. And Mark's question is around red tape. My favorite thing, not. So red tape is our biggest stumbling block. Is there a channel to approach? And I guess what we need to just be clear on with this red tape, this is not about the self-regulation. This is about licensing, our NPTR thing. This is about the red tape that is potentially there unnecessarily, that's hindering tourism. So Han, do you have a view on that?
I do. Part of our, and I don't know if I put it into that flow chart, I've just added from Diane's conversation, the B2B, B2C kind of education, very focused on education. Lobbying is going to be a big part of this. So as we do with SATSA, when we've got a number of members battling with a certain thing, we can take it up. We have the channels now. COVID taught us a lot about lobbying more successfully. But Mark is based in Cape Town, and Julia and them, well, not Westgrow, but there is the red tape reduction unit that Julia could maybe tell us a little bit more about.
Thanks, Han. Yeah, so Mark, we do specifically have our red tape reduction unit, which sits at our investment center. Again, if you do have concerns, the best is to drive it through Westgrow. We then take it up to DDAT, and then DDAT obviously escalates it up to Minister, and then to whether it goes to the Department of the Premier or who it needs to go to. Thankfully, our new minister is very tourism orientated and very tourism focused. So she has taken it upon herself to have private collaborations, with meetings with SATSA, with JAM. She really wants to have a seat at the table. So if you have problems, you can email me and I can escalate it up the chain. So that's all we can do for now as Westgrow, because obviously our mandate is just promotion, but we're here to then work together with our various provincial authorities to help reduce red tape. And that sits within Westgrow and within DDAT. So please reach out to myself.
Yeah, thanks, Julia. And if I can just add to that, I think Mark's specific issue is landing rights, and it's civil aviation and those sort of issues. And we have spoken about it before. And I think a lot more is going to come up as we start delving into adventure tourism, because it's slightly, every sector has their own different kind of stumbling blocks. So thank you for that, Julia. We're definitely going to be using you.
Yeah, and I will just attest to what Julia said about Minister Wenger. She's very much behind tourism, leading from the front, and very encouraging to see some of the figures coming out of the Western Cape with regards to air access, and also being on track for recovery by, I think it was March, hey Jules, 109% of where we were in 2020 March. So for the Western Cape, which is really brilliant. And now I have lost my train of thought. And it is back. Good gunner. Over to you. So one of the things that we're trying to do with the SATSA Adventure chapter is to kind of cut through the silos and this fragmented, uncoordinated approach, because if we all sing off the same hymn sheet, our voice is a lot louder. Do you have any insights from other destinations where they have been successful in bringing private sector together into a more consolidated, coordinated approach to promote their destination, offering their products within that destination that we could potentially learn from?
One example that is very dear to my heart comes from the Balkans, where I am from. And this is how I actually met the ATTA. And something that has worked very well since 2013, post-conflict countries, former Yugoslavia, probably rings a better bell. These countries were suffering post-war, and then they started actually speaking of cross-border itineraries, because this is what the traveler was demanding, especially the long-haul traveler. And I was actually involved in a project where, working with the DMOs from the National Tourism Boards from each of the destinations, was bringing 1 or 2 representatives from the private sector. And we started working with them and started encouraging them on creating these cross-border itineraries. What are the common things, but also different? Moving a little bit fast forward, 2014, ATTA, someone actually was an ATTA member. They brought the ATTA to present what they did. 2014, we did a fam trip bringing 20 buyers and media. It was an educational trip. And we were using the feedback from these buyers and media almost as consultants, hearing feedback. What works, what doesn't work? Is there a potential? And this was used very smartly to put together a bigger event in 2016. And then things started working for the region. More cross-border itineraries, more experiences, and so on. And it was taken as a given until COVID hit, when they actually realized that, oh, this is actually what we want to focus on. And it's been kind of, we're just simply developing, but they realized that without that initial support and feedback and education, a lot of education, because a few times was mentioned that they wouldn't be able to do this. And now at the summit, we had 30 representatives from 6 countries from Western Balkans coming together, establishing Balkans Green, which is for sustainability criteria, so that the whole industry can be lifted and have similar criteria and certification, but not only the paper, but actually serving a similar way. And they're establishing an adventure association, and we'll be working together on this so that they can continue promoting. This is one example. We have also from others, but since I'm from this region and it's really my journey with ATTA, just thought that it would be relevant to mention.
Amazing. Han, have you written that down on our list of things to do?
I definitely have, and we've been talking, because why would anybody fly all the way to the southern tip of Africa and not go to Victoria Falls or the Okavango Delta? I mean, these are iconic things. So our integration into the region is very important. We've started, Retosa doesn't exist anymore, and through the SADC Business Council, we are now starting a tourism subsector, which will specifically look at the things that we've been speaking about for years and years and years: visa, ease of access, etc. But it would be so critical. I mean, every single one of our neighbors have got, we've got the snow in Lesotho, we've got the falls, the delta, the exotic sea kind of things. So, regional integration. It's a long, hard road, but it has to be done.
So we'll go from 101 to 1001. There we go. Thank you, ladies. You've been an amazing panel. I've really enjoyed our time together today, and to everybody who hopped on the call with us. I have pasted in the chat the link to our adventure tourism landing page. You heard Hanli, she wasn't shy about asking for volunteers. That's how we roll at SATSA. We love people putting their hand up and saying that they'll get involved. So if you feel as passionately as we do about adventure tourism and you want to lean into that gap, please do let us know. We'd love to have your help. And thank you, Gergana, Julia, Di, and Hanli for joining me on today's panel. Hope to see you again soon. Cheers, everybody. Have a great evening. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.